I think sometimes you'll see in like Star Trek or Star Wars, the random giant nebula is right next to the planet. And so the nighttime for that species would have been so much cooler and more interesting. And also that's the kind of stuff that messed with our myths and our theories of gods and stuff, is looking at the moon and seeing the Milky Way and all that kind of stuff. But definitely imagining like a bunch of stuff that happens to us is because the moon is in a weird, perfect distance to be able to block out the sun exactly right. Another million years in either direction, and the moon would be closer or farther away and wouldn't cause that effect. The tilt of the planet, we got hit by a Mars-sized object in our early formation, so we're like 29 degrees off axis. That creates seasons in a way that doesn't in other places. And so, like, how much of our experience on this planet, like, you go to Vulcan or something, and it's like, yeah, no wonder you guys are boring. Your planet is perfectly vertical, and you have tiny little moons. Like, yeah, like, how much of our experience is shaped by random things like that?
Yeah, yeah. I tried to teach that to my older boys when they were kids. Like, you've got to find a moment to stare at the trees, and you're not looking at the trees. You're using that as a gateway to start appreciating all the magic that's going on around you. That they just seems less magical because it's called science, right? But I'm like,
But trees are fucking weird.
yeah,
Trees are so bizarre. That's an entire branch of life that at some point went a completely different route, and yet clearly is alive, clearly grows and adjusts, and like you can watch the sunflower follow the angle of the sun. Plants are bizarre. Like, how did we both grow up on this planet?
yeah. I feel that way too. Like, ever since Last of Us, like fungus.
Okay.
I'm like, holy shit, like there's a fungus that you know about, the one that takes over the brain,
Controls the
right?
ants.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
controls the
Yeah.
like, what? How
Yeah.
cool is that? You know, you're in that scary science place now where you're like, I want to know what that feels like, right?
Absolutely do not want to know what that feels like.
How do I do that? Is that LSD? Do I just, do I? It's crazy. This planet is crazy. You
It
know.
really is. Yeah. Welcome to Acceptance Criteria, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of how software gets made and how we can all do a better job together. My name is Kevin Thomas Euland, and across the chat from me is Andrew Greener. Say hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew. We're also here to get deeper on the human elements. I could go on for an eternity about people and how they think about the process of building complex systems. And I can't think of two better people to do that than Kevin and I.
And maybe you can come and be the third chair so it's not just us. If you've got a topic you'd like to come discuss or rant about, drop us a note and we'll see if we can get you on a future episode. And a quick reminder, whether this is your first episode or you've been listening for a while, we wouldn't say no to your going and dropping 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leaving us a nice review. And if you want to leave us a bad review, remember the name of the podcast is Critical Role. Also tell your friends if you like the show and that they should check it out. Some of the best podcasts out there grow by word of mouth, and we'd much appreciate it. And a friendly reminder that we are always interested in hearing questions directly from you, our listeners, for our segment User Stories. If you've got a scenario you'd like help with, whether it's working with an engineering or product team member, trying to figure out how to solve an agile process problem, or you just can't understand why your favorite app updated everything and it's now terrible, we're here to talk it through with you. You can send those questions to acceptancepod@gmail.com or submit them on the Discord and the User Stories channel, and we might be able to help on a future episode. And we're happy to keep it anonymous so no one can trace it back to you if you end up talking a coworker or something. On this week's show, we'll be getting into some recent news stories and talking about how they impact all of us. But before we get to all of that, let's take a short break and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. This is a segment we like to call Market Factors, where we talk about industry news stories and trends we're observing. Mostly, it's an excuse to rag on bad decisions and argue with each other whether some new piece of tech is worth it. Today, I think we're going to talk through a bunch of stories related to AI, which is our favorite topic to disagree about.
Sure is.
The first one here is Microsoft's CEO of AI said that content on the open web can be copied and used to create new content. Quoting from WindowsCentral.com, the CEO claimed that there was a separate category of content that cannot be used to train AI, which is indicated by an organization explicitly stating, "Do not scrape or crawl me for any other reason than indexing me so that other people can find that content." And no,
Yes.
You no,
No.
that is not what the internet. You don't get to change how the internet has worked and the expectation. And you know how I know I'm right? You know how I know I'm right? It's because Google Reader died because you couldn't monetize. Yes, Google Reader died because you couldn't monetize your content through an RSS feed. And so people stopped offering RSS feeds because your content was being consumed by people outside of your website, and therefore you couldn't see the ads and the other things that you're putting on the website. As soon
Sorry.
as AI scrapes this
No.
content and uses it, it's for the exact same reason. AI, as it is today with large language models, is theft. And this is bullshit.
So you're going to call this false equivalency, but it's not. That's like saying, you know how I know the Native Americans were supposed to be conquered because they would have had better weapons, right? Like, no. Like,
What?
that's just a
No.
time
We have
problem. That's just
history
a
is a
time
lesson
problem.
that we should learn from.
AI is worth the fight to point out how ridiculous the internet is. RSS was not. RSS did not propel us into the future. It did not get us to another planet. It wasn't
Neither does
worth the
AI, neither
battle.
do large language models.
AI is worth the war. And I could not disagree with you more fundamentally to the core of me. It is, if you put your shit online, unprotected, unrestricted, it's fair game. The internet is a big wallboard, and the minute you put something up there without any protection, it's free. It's free. It's fair game. In the same way, this is how humans evolve. Blues inspired R&B, right? That's how
Yeah,
we
careful
evolve.
when you do that, because there's a bunch of racist stuff that happened when rock and roll was inspired, when it was really just theft of black people's music,
Oh.
and all of a sudden they got to take credit for a bunch of things. This is the history of this country and this world, is doing things and claiming that the output is worth the theft that it was based on.
But you're tying a problem to something that I don't think is a problem, right? Like, I think they're two distinct conversations, right? Like, we do things that are institutionally racist all the time. So it's the right thing to do done in the wrong way, right? Where we just say, hey, at that period of time, let's just go steal this entire segment's art because one, they're not worth worrying about, and two, we don't have to monetize, right, in taking care of them. That was theft, right? Like, the music industry was protected by regulations, probably better today than back then, but yeah, that was that. But today, I have content on the internet, and very rarely, when it gets used, usually for photographs, I've only been contacted once by someone to use one of my photographs in an official capacity. But I don't care. Like, I put those photographs online. Like, I
But
knew it
that's
was
your
fair
choice. You
game.
don't get to apply your choice to everyone else.
No, no, no. But it's everybody else's choice to put their stuff unrestricted, unprotected online.
Because up until 2 years ago, the understood part of this world was you didn't get to do that. BuzzFeed got in trouble for sourcing its lists and putting images on lists that were not credited back to the original Tumblr users who did it. BuzzFeed had a massive scandal in the mid 2010s dealing with the fact that their lists were thieving from places like Tumblr, and they had to change their policy to credit the people on Tumblr where they were finding those images. This has been a thing that has been fought against for decades to make sure that people's usage of the internet was respected in the way we all understood it to be done. This change by AI models deciding to steal and not have to give credit, not have to pay royalties, not have to do anything is different and is a fundamental breaking of how the internet has worked. And I know I'm right because
No,
I have the evidence of
no.
examples where I'm right and you can't counterpoint me other than your own personal anecdotal evidence, which is nothing.
No, I feel like you're arguing. Here's how I'm going to twist this to make it sound like you're a conservative and I'm not, right? Like, you're like arguing like somebody gets to claim the trees as their own, and now I have to pay them to look at it. It's like, they're not your fucking trees.
If I planted the trees on my property, I am a liberal who thinks property rights are some real nonsense, but in current legal situations, if that's my property and I planted those trees, they are my trees.
They are
Of course they are.
they're your trees, but I'm not going to pay you to look at them and be inspired by them. If I go home and paint a picture of your trees, I don't owe you for the picture that I painted of your trees.
I would be surprised that you could
Oh,
make a
look at
Supreme
you.
Court
Look
argument. The
at
Supreme
you.
Court argument, your Supreme Court, your conservative nut jobs on the Supreme Court might be willing to punish somebody in that situation.
I'm just saying, like,
But you're creating a false equivalence to a non-existent
well, here's
scenario.
another one. Here's one a little closer then.
Uh-huh.
Stand-up comedians who accuse other stand-up comedians of stealing their humor. And it was best put, I think it was Dane Cook who got accused by it. And I listened to them talking, and I've always felt this way. It's impossible not to be derivative. It is impossible not to subconsciously, you can listen to a comedian, then 10 years later write your material. It's impossible not to be influenced by what you heard. Now, if you copy the joke word for word, that's theft. If you're inspired and it's a derivative piece of work, like there can't be a line, right? You can't create this imaginary line like you went too far.
But that's a case-by-case individual basis. If people wanted to make a stink about Dane Cook and doing that, they could get into the public sphere. Dane Cook's not original. Dane Cook's not doing those kinds of things. It's one person dealing with the outcome of this. These are multi-billion-dollar corporations stealing from millions of people. The scale of these things is drastically different.
Okay. So I'm a photographer and I am taking pictures and I'm freelance and I'm publishing pictures online of people wearing Nike. Should I then pay Nike for my freelance photos that then I sell as part of like my portfolio? Should I pay Nike for taking the photos and publishing pictures of people wearing clothes that belong to corporations?
If you try to make money off of that, there's a very good chance that Nike would have a case. That's exactly why
But
when
they
you watch
don't.
people on...
They don't though.
They do all
They
the
don't.
time.
Occasionally.
But that's the thing is that it's all a matter of degrees. Everything's a matter of degrees. That's why we have manslaughter and degrees of murder. This is a situation in which the degree is so massive that you can't argue for it. There's a reason why people go on reality TV shows and have to put the piece of duct tape on their hat because the hat has a logo for a thing that the reality TV show doesn't want to deal with paying the brand to represent it.
No, because it's contextual, right? For example, if the context of my photographs was an athlete running, Nike can then argue
Nike's probably pretty happy with it. Yeah, of course.
And Nike can say, well, you made $10 million from this portfolio of work. We want our cut, right? Like that's contextual. To me, this is the volume seems to be the problem for everybody. And I'm saying the contextual argument on these things is so small. I don't think it's an issue. I don't think all of the content that crosses the line contextually is enough that people should be worrying about it.
But that's not your choice to make. The people who are put out of a job because you stole someone else's work to train a model, and now that model is not being used to make your job better. It's being used to replace you. You were stolen from and then fired. So you didn't get to create the opening credits for Loki on Disney Plus. You had an AI go steal from a million people, and rather than pay a human being to learn from that, sure, a human being is derivative, but they at least learned from other people and are people, and instead what you did was steal from individuals and not hire a human being? Why?
No, come on. I mean, look at it from this point of view, right? Like Tolkien's family could have a lawsuit and go after 10 million people right now and say, your work is derivative of Lord of the Rings. Like there's enough comparisons.
But those things have been tested in court. No, those things have been tested in court. They've tried stuff like that and found the boundaries to this. What I'm saying is put the legal precedent aside, put the specific context aside. You are fundamentally changing the expectation of existing on the internet. The other reason I know I'm right is because things like Flickr come with licenses embedded into them. The reason I know I'm right is you go to Google Images, and one of the things you can search on is whether or not the image has Creative Commons licenses applied to it, and they will filter the results. Google knows that this is a thing because they will filter their image search results by licenses that people have chosen to grant to images. And if I didn't put the license on there, I had the fundamental assumption of the last 30 years of the internet that it was my piece of creativity.
I guarantee you the people who take advantage of that and give a shit about that is still the minority. Because one, a lot of people
course it is, and that's my point. That's the point.
Ignorance is no excuse.
Other direction. It's no. The entire way that the internet has worked for 30 years is it is opt-in. You have to opt in to choosing to share your content that way. You are opting in, and Google has chosen, Meta, OpenAI, all of these companies have chosen to ignore the opt-in rule. We know we had an opt-in rule because Google already does it in Google image search. By the way, the result of all of this is total crap and worthless anyways.
That is not true.
They've done studies. The Australian government did a study on AI and found that every single result using LLMs was worse than a human being. So you're burning the planet, consuming all of our water, stealing from all of the people that you should be paying in the first place, and you're producing worse output.
You had to go all the way to Australia, the bastion of tech.
The government that was willing to fund the thing to stand up to the tech oligarchs. Yeah.
Australians. Company built as a prison. So let's go there.
Yeah, if anything, you should be taking advice from all the thieves to know whether or not this is good theft.
I guess they do have like context there, right? But two, you're holding back humanity. You just are. You're holding back humanity for pennies. Like for pennies.
For pennies.
For pennies.
You are stealing from millions of people to engorge 5 billionaires to have more billions at the top. You're burning the planet. You're stealing California's
I didn't get to that.
water.
I didn't get to the planet, right? Look, we evolve at the precipice. So burning the planet is part of evolution. Does it suck? Yes. Do I get annoyed at people who deny like we have a problem? Yes, I get annoyed. But I also understand we're going to do that. We're going to burn the planet. And only when it gets to the point where we have to evolve and change and adapt and science take care of us, will we do that. This is where you and I differ. We agree in principle. I think we disagree on two things. And we talked about this in the past. One, I'm probably less ethical than you in my acceptance of how we get there. And then two, you have maybe an optimistic view of humanity grouping together and doing the right thing. And I'm like, no, that's not how we evolve. We're just going to do it. And the billionaires will continue to have power long after we exist. So we should just go for the ride.
You've been an engineering manager before, right?
Yes.
When someone tells you that in order to generate $1 million in revenue, they need 18 engineers to work 80-hour weeks, and the output of what they create is going to be crap, you would say that's a bad trade-off. You wouldn't let your engineers do that.
No.
The cost of this, the billions of dollars that we're investing in these things, the burning of the planet, the consumption of the water, and the output do not add up. It's bad math, and everyone's starting to recognize it's bad math. Wouldn't you, as a software person who wants the AI future, shouldn't you be annoyed that the results cost so much and yet are so terrible?
No.
They're so terrible.
No, because like everything, it will start expensive and we will find ways to make it cheaper. And I disagree. It's not crap. I saw a Star Wars trailer the other day for the 1950s version of Star Wars. Was it perfect? No. Was it friggin' magic? Yes, it was magic. It was not crap.
And a human being could have created that and not had it have problems.
The credits would have been 250 people. It would have been 250 people long. It would have been an expensive project. This was done in minutes. I mean, obviously the person had to cut all the different sections of it together, but it was amazing.
So why is that? We're having an entire AI episode. Moving on to the next topic. You're wrong. I'm right. Let's go.
Yeah. Enjoy the ride.
No, the ride is killing people every day. They would shut down that roller coaster.
Enjoy the ride.
No. All right, the next horrifying AI topic. Meet Showrunner, the Netflix of AI that turns viewers into TV show creators. It's a new AI company called Showrunner that allows you to do exactly what you just said. A crappy little partially okay Star Wars trailer that doesn't actually make sense. There's no internal logic. It is a regurgitation of other people's work and is not satisfying or interesting.
I'm so lost because Hollywood and the music industry, to me, I still consider them fundamentally flawed, right? Like how I look is more important than how much talent I have. Now, the best thing is when we get someone who looks the part and can play the part, right? Like they're a talented person. I'm done with that. I want to evolve those industries. And I'm so happy because do we really believe that the 250 best musicians, like the top 250 musicians, do we really believe that they're the best 250 musicians on the planet? Because they sell more records than everybody else? Or is there a chance that somebody who just isn't aesthetically pleasing is a as talented as them, and we will never know. Same with movie directors. There is so much talent.
Movie directors have not historically been
I
attractive
mean,
men.
they like you know, yeah, men probably get a pass where women don't, right? But still, there's the best looking, like Antonio, what's his name, the Julio Iglesias and George Michael. All these people were. There's a period of time where the sex symbol prevails, right? Like they are the top seller. And then you get your odd ones like Elton John, who just live on talent, but they're so talented, they're great, right? But this planet is absolutely brimming with talent, and we will find these people through this wave of AI. We will find, and the first generation of that happened where people said, we're not doing CDs anymore. We're just going to do our music online. And it leveled the playing field. It leveled the playing field for small shops who wanted to go up against Home Depot. Hey, we can't compete with them in brick and mortar, but we can compete with them a little bit online, right? The internet has done that for music and movies. And AI is going to do it to the next level because this planet is brimming with talent and we need to see it. And AI is going to bring it forward.
How on earth is Showrunner a thing designed to let you on your couch, a person who has no extra special talent, to go and steal from other people and create a thing that does not employ a new director, does not employ new hidden artists? You're saying, in your example, there are talented people who don't meet the definition of getting included in the industry, but they've still put in the work. They have figured out how to be good actors, how to be good writers, how to be good directors, how to be good cinematographers. Those people have invested in skills. AI is trying to say the fundamental argument of AI is you don't need to invest the time in those skills. We'll give you the shortcut. You type in a 2-paragraph summary and we'll do all the hard work for you. So explain to me how any of those people who are currently marginalized and excluded are benefited by this AI tool. What is it giving to them? Because it's not.
J.K. Rowling, she writes one of the greatest book series of our time, and she's not a writer.
But she actually put the work in to try and write
I
a
know.
thing.
She put the effort in to write the book, right?
Right.
But she's not a writer. She has no, she wasn't trained as a writer.
No, she's a terrible writer.
She had a story to tell, right? And there are a lot of people who have a story to tell. Like, if it takes them 5 minutes.
But your problem is access. Your problem is access, not the method. J.K. Rowling didn't need a shortcut. J.K. Rowling didn't need a little AI theft bot to write Harry Potter for her. She just simply needed the opportunity and the luck and the access to get her story out there. Why is AI writing for her by stealing from other people and doing a bad job at it the solution for J.K. Rowling?
Because remember, I mean, obviously you can't avoid the length of time because the amount of content, right? Like Rowling's writes, what is it, 6 or 7? I don't know how many books she released.
7. And then she turned into a TERF and started writing anti-trans material under a pseudonym.
I don't know much
that's a
about
separate story. Yeah, she's a monster.
She writes a book, so it's obviously going to take her years because there's so much content. But I don't give a shit if it takes you 5 minutes to come up with a show or it takes you 1 year to come up with a show. I care about the end product. Like, what people ask me all the time, well, how can you read Wikipedia before you watch a movie? Like, how can you skip 10 through? I'm like, because I haven't seen anything original since The Matrix first movie. That was the last time I sat there and went, holy shit, this is good. Never mind the acting, never mind who's like never mind the performance factor. Like, wow, like they broke my head with the story.
But why aren't you trying to give access to more Wachowski twins who have that opportunity? Because AI is trained on the Matrix. All it's going to do is regurgitate Star Wars Matrix. It's not going to come up with something new and interesting. You're never going to be challenged by something that an AI model comes up with.
Wait a minute though. No, because and right now we're at the infancy, right? So models are getting trained on the content and we need more content, right? Until the point we can generate content and feed the content back in and say, hey, learn from this, right? And it'll
They've tried that.
I know.
They've tried that.
I know, because it dilutes,
so
right? Like it never,
it's
it doesn't
a Xerox of a
dream
Xerox.
like we do, right? So you need it to dream
Correct.
outside the box, and that's the place we got to get to.
But why do you want it to dream outside of the box? Why don't you want the human being to dream? You can make an argument that AI could help the dreamer execute
No, because
more
the
effectively.
human is the one with the framework. The human is the one who says, take that and that, stick them together, and then feed it into that. And people will, and that's the bit I'm looking for. I'm like, you blew my mind, not because of the colors and the content and this and that. You blew my mind because you took two things that should not taste good together that do. And that's what the human is there for. The AI is there for the content. The human is there for the shape.
But that's not how AI is being used. AI is being used to provide the content and the shape. And
No, no, no.
Yes,
I'm
it
not
is.
disagreeing with you.
And
I'm just saying, but we're in the infancy.
but the cost of the infancy is too much.
Uh,
So we're burning the planet and we're causing droughts in other places so we can cool our
yeah.
GPUs. So that rather than just hiring 8 creative people and sticking them in a writer's room like we used to do, like we used to create incredibly funny, great things, all of the amazing sitcoms of the last 50 years did not happen because one person was smart. They happened because 8 people had those dreams and were able to bounce off one another in the writer's room. Why would you want to get rid of the 7 and just give the one person an AI who
Okay.
isn't smart enough yet to
But
do
so I'm going to
anything?
make a loose equivalency here where you're not going to like it. But here's how I think about your
Uh-huh.
system. You're talking about a system that the liberals will argue is institutionally racist, right? Because people from minorities don't get the same opportunity at education to become these things. And I'm saying, in my world, in my future, I don't care if you're tall, short, black, white, female, male, any other gender. I just care. I don't want to see who you are, right? Like people, my mom would say, "Hey, have you seen the David Beckham documentary?" I'm like, guess what? I don't want to see who he is. I only care about him when he's playing the game. Same with a movie. I don't want to listen to Quentin Tarantino be interviewed. Maybe I do actually, because his movies are like,
So
yeah, but
weirdo.
his movies are, oh my God. Like, if you're watching Glorious Bastards and you've actually like studied like Stanislavski and the structure of movies, like his movie is ridiculous. Like it's like a
Sure.
piss take of all the other modern war movies, right? Like it's unbelievable. But I don't care about these people.
Yeah.
So you're fighting for an institution and a way of life that is inherently flawed for generations of people. And I'm saying, in my world, yes, it's not as accessible for people who are in situations where they can't afford a machine, right? So you have to be able to have a computer and internet to begin with, but it
Mm-hmm.
levels the playing field, because when I see that content and 100 million other people see that content and we all agree that whoever created this is talented, it wasn't somebody who was spoon fed to me and told. Does it not piss you off when you know a movie is bad and then you see all the viewer ratings, but then you see the people who got paid to give it a good review? Like, does that not piss you off when the critics are paid to give a good review, but then you see 100 million people who say this was and it was expensive and that expensive could have been used to pay for more AI.
No, it should not have been used to pay for more
Bad
AI.
movies destroy the planet just like AI does. Yes, they do.
Bad movies are there are questionable ways that this industry spends its money, and we could be solving homelessness in LA rather than making the 307th movie this month. I'm not disagreeing with that. We are identifying similar problems. Your solution is nonsensical though, because your solution is not being used that way. You can talk about all of these amazing hypothetical situations that you want. That's not how the tech oligarchs are using this technology. They are not solving your problems either. So you should actually be pissed at OpenAI and Sam Altman, whatever his name is, because he's not doing it that way. What he's doing is firing all the writers, all the directors, all the creative people, and not letting. It would be one thing if AI was set up to be, and it's not. It's not good enough. That's the other problem. It's just simply not good enough. The schlock that AI regurgitates by stealing other people's work is not well written. It is not going to give you Quentin Tarantino, Aaron Sorkin, any number of good writers' output. It is not generating images as effectively as a human being is. It's not acting as well as human beings could. So maybe some future version in 50 years that hopefully doesn't take burning the planet is a helpful thing that learns from your writing and helps you write the paragraph you would have written anyways. But what benefit does that provide to you? You're identifying the correct problems. Your solution needs to be simply fixing the racist, gatekeeping, misogynistic crap that goes on in these industries and giving more people access. AI doesn't help them with that access. You're envisioning a world in which AI magically lets me populate onto SoundCloud something that's going to be consumed by millions of people. It doesn't work that way. The industries themselves aren't going that way. Movie studios are simply firing people and shoving AI generated schlock down our throats.
One, fixing that misogynistic, racist society does not work. Like, this country will not solve that problem, right?
It won't be solved by your AI because your AI, you should be pissed that your AI is not being
I
used
argue it
this way.
actually will. I believe that we will evolve out of these things, and I believe we just got to we just got to autopilot, and AI is part of the autopilot into the future where creative people are never seen. I don't care what you look like. I want these industry. I want this. And then the second thing you said, which I completely disagree with, is you're talking like the majority of actors are talented, and I would argue that is not true. Like, the majority of actors are not talented, like, and the AI content is not that inferior, there's a lot of junk on TV. Like those, is it entertaining to somebody? Yes, but they're not talented. Like AI is not that far behind humans for convincing. Showgirls? Oh, there's so many movies that AI would have just done a better job of. Big movies too. Star Wars.
Would not have done a better job. Factually, would not have done a better job.
Will.
I've seen the crap that it generates. The dog's head merges into the dog's head next to it, and to solve it and train it to be smarter. It's not getting cheaper, by the way. The next version of all of their models are costing twice as much, is requiring even more energy consumption. So the traditional technology route of things get cheaper over time is not happening with AI.
But just like when we have an epidemic, that will progress medicine. Medicine progresses at the precipice, right? Where we are doomed.
We were already figuring out how mRNA works before we needed to do it for a vaccine.
But the power consumption issue will now be at the forefront of challenges, right?
It absolutely will not. You don't get to hope that there's a magic future where we all evolve because enough people watched an AI-generated piece of crap on SoundCloud and we were like, oh, cool, I don't care that it's a black woman doing that. I'm going to listen to whatever. You're just as wish casting as I'm wish casting, hoping that we can convince the tech oligarchs to stop doing this and to start doing things. Neither of us have a concrete plan to make those things happen. Both of them are wishes. And so your wish is no more valid than my wish.
No, my wish is happening. I'm saying take your hands off the wheel. Just enjoy the ride. Trust the corporations.
It's not happening
Trust
because
the billionaires.
It's the corporation. Trust the corporations and the billionaires. They are not incentivized to let this happen. They are incentivized to be in complete control. Their ideal future is David Zaslav, that moron at the top of Warner Brothers Discovery, sits in front of a computer and types 14 sentences and gets 14 new movies generated. David Zaslav doesn't want you to go and do anything special. He wants full control, and he is not interested in enabling the random trans kid in Tennessee who should have the opportunity to be an actor from getting a shot.
Do not pretend that Hollywood does not sit there at the beginning of the year, drop a script on the table and let 8 friggin' studios go make that same movie 8 different ways. That happens. That is a real thing.
Yes, and at least human beings get employed and people get paid. You have to care about humanity.
I care about the evolution of humanity.
At the cost of the current humans. All right, we're back on the AI topic.
I like fighting about it, but we're never going to agree. But I think we should continue to fight about it because I think maybe people like us solve the problem. But we gotta only at the precipice do we evolve.
No. The next story is talking about the recent Paris Olympic Games and the amount of online abuse that they were facing. And so a company called Threat Matrix was going to be partnered with the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games to go through and try to help deal with the online abuse. And it's using AI models. A quote from this BBC article: during the games, Threat Matrix will scan social media posts in over 35 languages in partnership with Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X, formerly Twitter. The system will identify abusive comments directed at athletes, their entourages, and officials at the Olympics and Paralympic Games. Though people can opt out if they prefer, it will then categorize different types of abuse and flag posts to a team of human reviewers. The AI does most of the heavy lifting, but human triage is critical. Burroughs, I should have found out who Burroughs was, said. So we need AI to do a thing that Twitter and Facebook, Twitter used to kind of have a team that tried to do this. Facebook sort of had a team that did this in certain places, and then those people rightly got burnt out because dealing with online harassment and the nonsense that human beings say to one another is a mentally and emotionally draining job. But it's wild that we need a company called Threat Matrix to go, burn a couple of CPUs on AI for a thing that should be handled and moderated by the social networks themselves. We're going to talk about Ticketmaster and ticketing, and it's the exact same thing. It's the exact same puzzling situation in which some other company has to go and waste a bunch of money and resources to do the thing I would expect the social networks to do. And also human beings suck and shouldn't say crappy things to one another. I don't know. This one is boggling to me that we're allowing Facebook and Meta and all of these companies off the hook.
I am confused by this one. So Threat Matrix, though, that's their specialty, right? Like they're the fraud detection company, right?
I think they might be doing other things, and then they're being tasked with finding the online abuse during the Olympic Games and flagging it for all of these networks to then go and try to deal with. But why you are Facebook, you are Twitter, why is that not your responsibility? Why do you need to outsource that?
I feel like maybe we're holding them to a higher standard in this instance because it's pretty normal to go after somebody whose expertise is like threat intelligence, fraud, discovery of fraud, fraud discovery, fraud detection, sorry. Like, why would I not outsource that when that's your specialty instead of having like a department who's, I'm trying to replace that expertise in-house with a company that can do a much better job of it because that's what they do, right? They've got decades of experience of saying, well, yeah, these models are built on top of our proprietary system that has been in place for years. I don't know. I guess I'm not. I don't feel as badly about the social networks outsourcing that.
Maybe that's fine. Although, also, I think this is a good example, possibly, of LLMs sort of poisoning the pot of the phrase AI, because a bunch of this kind of stuff is absolutely just machine learning models that are not large language models that don't need to deal with that. We've had sentiment analysis and a bunch of other things for a decade now. But then why is it just for the Olympics? I think my issue is like the Olympics aren't unique. People have been complaining about the Nazis on Twitter for a decade. So why are you just pulling in threat matrix to help deal with the Olympics? If this is, I'm saying it's a fundamental thing of Facebook and Twitter. If the thing is the right way for both of those companies to solve it is to outsource it to experts, I'm on board, but it's goofy that they're just doing it for the Olympics. Like the Olympics is a once every 4 years thing.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is a thing that happens every day on your networks.
So let me provide a little bit more detail to why I use the word evolution. This is for our listeners, not necessarily for you. Why I talk about evolution is this example. I feel like it starts with something like the Olympics, and people like us say, well, why just the Olympics? And then I think it will move, right? Because this is a very common problem. This is a big problem in Europe, right? Like people go to
Right.
prison for what they
Right.
say on social media in Europe. So I think it'll move from the Olympics, and the Premier League will do it, and then La Liga will do it. La Liga in Spain will do it 20 years after
Right.
everyone else because Spain, you are
Right.
one of the most racist countries I've ever seen. Like,
Yes.
way to be institutionally racist and do nothing about it, even though your people want you to change.
To themselves, well, not, I shouldn't say themselves because I don't think Catalonia would consider themselves really actually part of Spain, but
Right.
like even within Spain, they are racist against their own fellow countrymen.
Yeah, yeah. And Spain, even Italy is changing. That should tell you something. Like when you're behind Italy for racism, like
Yeah.
come on. But anyway, it'll move from the Olympics, and then it will become like, well, cool. How do we do the retail version? How do we make it common for everybody else? How does it become affordable? So when I talk about evolution, I think we'll see it in the Olympic Games, and I think we'll see it in the World Cup, and then I think you'll see it in the Premier League, and it'll become like, oh, every single week now, and there'll have to be an acceptance of the social media companies to pay more, but then hopefully then it won't happen for X, but hopefully the advertisers will be happier because they'll be able to say, we feel
Right.
much more comfortable doing more advertising on your platform because it is a much safer experience, right?
But that is letting these guys off the hook. We've known that this is a problem for over a decade. So, sure, maybe it'll slowly evolve, but this is evolution that deserves a kick in the butt because we've known about this problem and complained about this problem, and Mark Zuckerberg has sat before Congress about this problem for a decade now. And so they don't get a pat on the back for finally recognizing for one event they should slowly start to evolve. You dipshits have been poisoning the planet. There have been genocides in Southeast Asia fueled by Facebook's inability to moderate what's being talked about on Facebook. This is a known problem, and evolution in this case is too slow.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of in a nowhere land with the social media's obligations. Obviously, X, I have a much stronger opinion on X because it's a cesspool. When I spend as
Right.
much time as I have to blocking people, they've just got to improve their tools, right? Because if you're going to create a
Right.
cesspool, you've also got to provide like sanitizer, where it's like, well, when you step out of the cesspool, there's a shower and you can sanitize yourself. And X doesn't
Right.
have those features. It's just a cesspool, right?
I'll also say, like, I really appreciate that a culture built up on Blue Sky, the Jack, whatever his name is, Dorsey,
Jack Dorsey.
Twitter co-founder, his new Twitter competitor, basically. It was organic within the user base to consciously make the decision they were not going to be like Twitter. And so they started just the, like, ethos of welcome to Blue Sky. If you don't want to hear from that person, liberally block them. Just block immediately whoever you want. And Blue Sky responded to that by making blocking easier and making the ability to share blocks and like a whole bunch of things. So Blue Sky reacting to that kind of cultural
Yeah.
change has been really good.
Which, for our listeners, like this is probably one of my superpowers, but Twitter are now catching up to where I've been for years. And this and I'll equate it back to like when I think of Ego Matrix, which was a
Yep.
product I wanted to build years ago, and it was always based upon creating the island, right? Like if you want to shape the internet and just turn people off, like, and your whole internet experience should be like that, right? The credit score, just turn everybody below a 700 off, right? My choice. They're starting to respond now, and fortunately they're seeing the users, the best way to get a requirement right from the user base, and it's great. That needs to evolve much quicker too, because honestly, there's no way on any social media I shouldn't be able to say, filter all of these people, I want you to percolate. So whenever somebody comes in, that percolator just sits there. Whenever somebody reveals themselves to match the filter, immediately
Right.
block them. That has to be a thing in the future internet, so I can shut off the crazy.
As long as it's not the government or the corporations defining the credit score definition. If you can define your own credit score definition and have it apply that way, that's great. There are also weird things that the AI still isn't smart enough to deal with. So liberals can't stop looking at a car crash and will go read articles about Trump. And then your profile shows up as you have interest in Trump. And it's like, well, no, you're not pro-Trump by reading those articles. So there's still some work to do on how you could identify what those signals are. But sure, yes, I think you need to.
Surely it's smart enough to know if I'm reading an article about Trump on CNN, it's anti-Trump, right?
CNN is not anti-Trump. No one's anti-Trump in the media, unfortunately. They do way too much. Oh, did you hear his ridiculous answer on childcare yesterday or the day before?
Well,
he gave a full word salad trying to justify nothing. He said nothing. And the New York Times was like, he kind of hinted at his policy of doing tax credits and promised that the amount of money that we would spend would be more than what it costs to do childcare. And it's like, no, he didn't. He said 400 words and none of them were chained together because apparently Joe Biden's age was an issue and Trump's isn't because everyone's in the bag for Trump. It's hard to tell, but anyway. No.
Did it start like this?
People, yes, an amazing visual joke for the podcast listeners.
Everybody says.
We're not doing Trump impressions.
Sorry.
I do think also this is where you'll be right and I'll be sad that I'm wrong, which is human beings suck. Why are you being crappy to Paralympics people? Why are you being crappy to Olympics people? Stop it. Don't. Why is that a thing that makes your life better?
I'm sure the listeners are not listening to us at this point who I'm talking to, but and I don't mind like if you're offended by this, but you've got to be a special kind of broken, not just a Paralympics.
Right.
You got to be a special kind of broken to go online and just be cruel to someone, right?
I'm sorry Dad didn't hug you enough, but go to therapy. Don't take it out on Twitter.
Unless they deserve it.
Unless they're Oscar Pistorius who murdered his wife.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. This one, like I always think about the free speech argument, right? Because I'm not American, so I'm not I'm not bound to the Constitution like you guys are. But it's interesting to me because like I did mention, like in European people being sent to prison for the stuff they say online. Usually about the ones that at least the stories I'm reading are about soccer players, football players.
Sure.
But people go to prison for the stuff they say online. I'm not advocating
in other countries, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do. However,
in Saudi Arabia, it's for saying that women have a right to exist. So it's not always great when that happens. Yeah.
However, I will point out, like, people do need to educate themselves on free speech. When I'm on Facebook and they're like, well, it's free speech. It's like, well, it's
free speech is the government, not corporations.
Yeah. That argument is long to die. I don't know if it'll ever die, because I think there are people who might have actually legitimate arguments to say, no, that's wrong.
Yeah.
And then there are people who just are stupid and just have no idea what free speech actually means. It's like that one, somebody needs to find a pill that you just eat and you go, oh, I get it. I understand the Constitution now. Like, I understand.
The limitless pill for the Constitution.
The limitless pill for the Constitution, so people just get it.
See, the problem is if it's a red pill, it says that the Second Amendment is perfect. And if it's a blue pill, it says the Second Amendment has built-in limits that should be adhered to. I
actually wanted to write the book, like, this is like 15 years ago, and on one side it says what it means to be conservative, what it means to be liberal. It's a flip book, so one half is the liberal and one half is conservative. But as you get closer to the center, it's like the moderates, right? Like these are the things that you get closer to agreeing
the indecisive weenies who can't decide that where they believe murdering the 4 children in Georgia yesterday was worth your gun control rights. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, those two would definitely be one of the first chapters, first two chapters are basically gun control, right? But yeah, like people, you got to go understand what free speech means. So like, you don't get to go on Facebook and Twitter and some of the, well, Twitter you do, sorry.
Twitter, you do.
Facebook, you don't get to go in somebody else's sort of world, into their private space,
Right.
say whatever you want, and then not expect to be
Yeah.
abridged, controlled,
Yeah.
kicked out, banned.
All right. The next article is, can technology fix the broken concert ticketing system? There's a company called, how do you even pronounce this? Tixology? Ugh. See, but I
Tixology.
think it's Tixology,
You're
like
putting
mixology.
you're putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Syllable. Yeah, exactly.
It's Tixology.
Uh-huh. And so the idea is, it's this other company who's going to somehow help Ticketmaster or whoever make sure that people aren't buying excessive numbers of tickets, and with the admirable goal of stopping scalpers and, the situation where people have flown to Europe to see Taylor Swift because it was cheaper to get a flight and a hotel to a country in Europe than it was to drive 30 minutes to see Taylor Swift in the US. This is a problem. Scalpers and price gouging in the ticket space is bad. And so this AI is allegedly going to help flag people making multiple purchases from the same IP addresses and other unusual purchasing behavior to try to prevent these, the scalpers from getting ahead of the actual fans and customers who want to buy the tickets. They've also got some other technology about making sure that the ticket only exists like as, I don't know if they're using NFTs, but it is trying to do a one copy of the ticket is truly unique. And that way there are other scams that happen where SeatGeek and other sites will get scammed into, sharing the same ticket to 5 people and they all show up and only one of them gets to have the seat. And so it's this company trying to figure out how to help the scam or stop the scams. And yet there's also this extra thing that they do, which is try to figure out if they should do basically surge pricing like Uber would do and try to figure out how to raise prices as demand goes up for the tickets, which I feel like Ticketmaster already does. And why can't Ticketmaster detect your IP address and stop the bots and stop the scammers? This is another example to me of like, why are we letting Ticketmaster off the hook that we need this company called Tixology to do it for you? Why isn't Ticketmaster on the hook for preventing scammers and the resale market from ruining their own business? The only assumption I can make is because it's good for them. It's good for them to have all of that money come flying in the first 30 seconds of the sale. And I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, again, yeah. So similar to the last conversation, I don't mind that it's been outsourced, because I can think as an architect, like there's big companies like Ticketmaster and you've been at big companies, right? Like they almost can't get out of the way of themselves, right? To do these things sometimes. So sometimes some external expertise is fine. I like this first one, like the excessive number of tickets, because I don't know, there's a little bit of me that and when we get to the surge in dynamic pricing in a second, you'll see me lose my mind. But
Right.
I think getting scammed by a human versus getting scammed by an algorithm, they cause two different emotions in me. It's like I always say, like I'm watching the Terminator movies and I'm thinking to myself, like, well, I'd rather get killed by a robot than a human, because the last thing I think of is I don't want to be thinking like this person got one up on me. The robot, I'm like, well, it's just code. It's just logic, right? It's logical for it to kill me. So I'm okay with that. So people who buy excessive numbers of anything, those are the guys who they should be lined up and shot during the apocalypse, right? Where they're hogging water. Right, they're the worst. They're the price gougers, right? But it's a different kind of rage. The dynamic and the surge pricing, I've kind of got used to it a little bit in certain like situations. Like, so when I have Stanley Cup tickets, and this is the last 2 years, being down in Florida, go Florida Panthers.
I'll cut that.
It's actually the reverse. The problem has been I've wanted to sell my tickets lower than the price of the tickets around us, but the system doesn't let me put my tickets at a lower price. So I'm
Right.
like, and I feel like, yeah, I get it. Somebody along the chain wants to make more money, but I'm actually trying to do the right thing, where I'm like, I'm trying to get another fan who can afford these tickets the option to buy these. So I'm still making some money, but I'm not like making ridiculous amounts of money. And somebody who can't really afford the price you're forcing me to put them on at, now we've just run the risk of we both lose, because nobody buys them.
Right.
So none of us make any money. And then the person who could have attended the game doesn't make any, they don't win because they can't afford afford the tickets. So
And the
everybody
venue
loses.
loses out on them doing merch purchases and food purchases
Right.
and all of those things. Like, why
Yeah.
is it good for anyone involved?
What weird chapter in game theory was
Right.
lose. Everybody fucking loses, right?
Right. Yep.
Like I don't want that chapter.
Nope.
So that bothers me. And it's not just music. And this again, because it's context, it's always about our interests, right? Like it annoyed me, but I don't go to see a lot of live music because half of the time I'm there, I'm like, I can do that, right? Like, but Valencia in Spain football club, they are also doing it, or they've
The
proposed to
surge
do it.
pricing.
Yeah, just infuriating because this is the excuse that infuriates me. And it's Justin Peter Lim is the former shareholder of Salford City in the UK. And Peter, if you're listening, which I know you're not, but I hope you do one day. I hope you find this late at night one time. You are in my special group of worst human beings on the planet because you said this. It wouldn't be fair for someone who planned ahead and bought a ticket early to pay the same as someone who waited until the last minute. And I can tell you, having been to thousands of games in my life, that nobody gives a about when the person next to them bought the ticket.
Right.
Ever.
No.
Never has that been an issue ever for us. And you are now flipping it to make it like we care? You scumbag.
Yeah.
Truly, you are a scumbag for saying that.
It's insane. Kroger is rolling out a thing in partnership with Microsoft to do this on the actual grocery aisle so that they can do surge pricing to figure out why they should charge you more for the loaf of bread when there are, fewer loaves of bread on the shelf, when it's the peak shopping hours. It's a all of these things are a gross manipulation of the capitalistic concept of supply and demand. It doesn't work this way. Supply and demand I'm actually not super upset with Uber on surge pricing because genuinely the supply is dwindling as more people are taking rides. And so there is an argument, I suppose, but venue seats at a concert or a sporting event are a fixed supply, and the demand going up and down you can decide that in aggregate. If this is a Taylor Swift concert and Taylor Swift thinks that the people sitting 20 feet away from her in the first row should pay more, that's fine. But the people in the first row who buy it in June versus the people who buy it in September don't get any more value out of that attendance. The supply hasn't dwindled. The demand isn't different. You can set a supply versus demand price in aggregate, but changing it based on what? Based on greed? There's no benefit to Kroger charging somebody a different price on the shelf based on time or something else. That's not how it works. That's infuriating. Either Wonder Bread is being manufactured in enough quantities that its price is whatever. I don't eat white bread, so I wouldn't know, like $5 a loaf or something, but like it's maddening that this is the degree of capitalism we're now stuck in thanks to technology.
So the Kroger one, I'm interested in. Can the price go below the base? Because then
Why would they? The
because
only goal of this is to increase Kroger's profit and margin.
but there's a product on the shelves that's not selling in the way that they thought it would, and so the agreement is like part of the system is
Sure, mark it down. They do that all the time. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
got a long shelf life. It's
Yep.
going to automatically drop. So I can see where with the Kroger case now.
Price discounts are a pain in the ass for retail to have
Right.
to deal with. Absolutely. Sales, all of those kinds of things. But their stated objective is to increase the price.
Yeah.
Their stated objective is to do surge pricing. It's fine if you're going to solve exactly what you're talking about. I have worked in retail. My mom works in retail. I know the stupid thing that happens when marketing changes their mind on Friday night and decides what the new Saturday sale price is and how difficult that is. Digital displays make a ton of sense, but not targeting, oh, it's a mom of four walking by. I can charge her an extra $3 for this kind of thing, especially in grocery. Grocery is already such a narrow margin business. It is designed to provide a public good, and in equity capital and investors trying to eke out more shareholder value out of Kroger is disgusting. It should be nationalized and they should all lose all their money. It's absolutely barbaric.
Yeah, this one I'm having a hard time with because I'm trying to process where it could go.
This is the problem with technology so many times. There's so many good uses. There's so many benefits. You could absolutely save so many people time in the grocery store not having to go relabel exactly what you're talking about. The discount, the markdown, all of those situations. But the equity capital at the top of the chain is going to say no. The goal is we can have computer vision notice that it's a woman pushing a shopping cart with a baby in the front, and therefore we're going to charge her $5 instead of $3. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
And this is the problem with technology in general. It gets abused.
Yeah, but this one, you're not gonna like it because it brings out the conservative nature of me. But this
Uh-huh,
one,
yeah.
this one, my jury's out because I could see how it can be used for good too. So my jury's out on this one.
We're not disagreeing about the good. I'm saying that the
Yeah,
stated objective is not the good, and therefore
right.
someone needs to step in and say, absolutely, this is very cool technology. I know the people in retail who hate dealing with the markdown and the discounts and the constantly shifting. Today, this is 2 for $5. Like, all of that stuff is a pain in the butt for all of those folks. It makes a ton of sense for them. I need a regulator to come in and say, you're allowed to do that. You're not allowed to price gouge people, because that's what they're going to do.
Well, here's a good one. Like, do bananas drop in price every day they sit on the shelf?
Which they should, because they
They
flip from
absolutely
yellow to
should,
brown
right?
in
Like
3 hours. Yeah.
because I always find these words interesting. It's not true of all products, but a lot of them, right? Best before, because it's a degrading
Right.
quality, right? So it's like it's best before then, right?
Right.
But it's not as good on day 250 on the
Right.
shelf as it was on day one. And so I could see how it could be used for good to say, hey, there's a depreciation of this product, so there's a drop in
Yes.
price.
Absolutely. But the way they're going to use it, and it's ridiculous. Wonder Bread has a fixed cost to Kroger. Wonder Bread creation has a fixed cost to the Wonder Bread Corporation. So there is zero benefit or reason other than greed to notice a reason to increase the price of Wonder Bread.
However, if you could link that to healthcare, right, and say, if you want to, this is going to sound terrible. You're going to hate me
My
for this.
God.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's like, for example, cigarettes, right? They're very expensive and there's tax and everything, right? So if
Yeah.
you want to destroy yourself, you should pay more. So if you want
But
to
it's a fixed more. You're always paying the same amount more. If I looked at, so if we were allowed to say, we know young people tend to come to the grocery store at 3 p.m. getting out of school, and we're not allowed to legally tell them that they can, as you vape secretly behind your microphone, you're not legally allowed to target teens and kids. But if, by the way, between 2 and 4 p.m. cigarettes were only $12 a pack, and then we know that the adults come in, and from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. cigarettes are $40 a pack, and we can price gouge the adults and hook the kids on the stuff, that's awful and terrible. The cost of the cigarette should be marked up as a disincentive, but fixed.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with this one because, yeah,
So you're fully on board with the computer vision, noticing the single mom walking with the 3 kids and charging her more for Wonder Bread.
No. I'm well, I won't say I'm not okay with it. I'm saying that my
Ah.
jury's out. I don't swing one way or the other yet. However,
Uh-huh.
if they ever cross the line into the medicine and the water and the things that, like diapers, for example, like I think there's a sacred category of things that the government and private industry should agree on. Like there's a sacred category of things that we can't go after and ever increase the price of unfairly. One should be water, and
You
then
shouldn't need to buy water. Your water coming out of your tap should be drinkable. Selling water in a bottle is
should
insane.
that should be, but it becomes less and less true every year, right? But
Yeah, thanks to Republicans. Yeah.
but there are certain categories of things I would want exempt from this, but then there's some things that I might be okay with the dynamic pricing. Because I think at the end of the day, too, like if look at it from a
But who draws that line, and where does that line happen? So wheat thins are allowed to be dynamically priced, but whole grain bread isn't. But white bread is, because white bread's worse for you than whole grain bread. So now you want the government getting involved in making the choices. Why isn't the government simply
No.
saying price gouging in general is unfair? If you're going to offer yourself as a grocery store, then anything you sell cannot be price gouged. If you want to get in the business of price gouging people, open the gap, open something else. Like,
but there's an acceptable gouging only becomes gouging, right, when it crosses an unacceptable boundary, right, when it becomes unaffordable.
only when we're operating in theoreticals, and then you're giving people wiggle room to find the opportunity. Why is it not just a blanket statement?
But for example, farm produce, right? If there's an event and dynamic pricing is adjusting for that event, but it's going to supplement the loss for the farmer because of that event, then I would rather in that situation protect the farmer.
But that shouldn't be passed on to the consumer. The government should just deal with the fact that thanks to our terrible policies that are enabling climate change, the fire burned down 5,000 acres in Nebraska, and you lost half of your thing through no fault of your own. The government should recompensate you, not the consumer.
Yeah, you see, that's why we differ. I'm okay for that to get passed to the consumer in certain situations, and that's the problem for me right now. This is why I'm in no man's land, because I can't think of events necessarily necessarily that would lead to this, but I think the consumer.
But the consumer already technically pays for it because the government is paying for it. So the consumer has indirectly paid for it, but it doesn't necessarily immediately negatively impact their pocketbook, which is good for the economy and good for the government. So the government should want to be in the business of subsidizing that directly rather than letting the consumer have to do it.
Yeah, I'm okay with
Next
it.
year, their tax return is going to be smaller and they won't realize the connection.
I'm Yeah, I mean,
All right.
the challenge for me is like I used to be very obsessed about taxes. I still am to some extent. I don't open this can because of how obsessed I get about. So I don't think about it. Right, the government already doesn't tell me where they spend my tax dollars. Maybe I can go find it in the doldrums of the internet somewhere, right?
Right.
But I can't find it, and I can't control it. I can't say, "Cool, give me an update of the family that gets my tax dollars," or "Give me an update of the studies that you did where I know my tax dollars was applied and how much I was." So at some point, you have to just give up on that and be like, "All right, no one's ever going to tell me how they waste my money." It's sort of a blind payment, right? Like I just pay it, and I'm like, I don't think of it as I'm supplementing the farmers once already. So I'm okay when I go to the consumer store and I supplement them again because of all the people in society who I need to keep going. The farmers are one of them. Like I think to myself, like, yeah, I want to support the farmers, right? Like they're having a tough year,
But
and
but consumers aren't aware of that. There's not a
no,
little sign saying your banana is now more expensive today due to the earthquake in California. So they don't know that that's why the banana's higher. They just think Joe Biden's bad at managing the economy.
well, yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's always going to be ignorant people. But like, if you've lived through mad cow's
Most
disease,
people are ignorant because the world is too complex.
if you lived through mad cow's disease, you know why the steak was 4 times the price when it finally came back on the shelf, right? Like,
Sure.
there are people who, yeah, there's always going to be ignorant people, but yeah, it's such a gray area for me right now until I see it because I don't think it will be excessive. I don't think it's going to be like I go in there and they're scanning because that would be unconstitutional anyway, right? To scan a mother with four
No,
kids and then dynamically price the Wonder Bread.
not with this Supreme Court. It definitely wouldn't.
Ah, you're always picking on the Supreme Court.
They absolutely would do that. They do that every day.
You should remember they're supreme. Like they're not. It's not called the normal court. It's
They are
supreme.
not. They are morons. They don't know how to read the Constitution.
They're supreme.
Nope.
Anyway, yeah, I'm jury's out on that one.
All right. Our final article for today is tech stocks take a pounding as hedge fund Elliott warns AI trades like Nvidia are in bubble land. This is probably like a month old at this point, but yeah, AI tech stocks have not been doing well. Intel is cutting 15,000 jobs as part of a $10 billion cost saving scheme. Intel is in dire straits right now because they are over investing in AI, and the federal government said if you can meet some quality standards that we expect, we'll help you fund this with a couple $1 billion. And Intel hasn't been willing to actually prove to the government the positive uses of their AI. So Intel is in dire straits right now. Tesla and Google have had poor stock performance. Nvidia is down 20% since June. Part of the reason Nvidia is down is because they can't deliver as many chips as they claimed that they could. And so now actually Tesla and Amazon are considering making their own chips so that they aren't reliant on Nvidia, which is cool, great, a good use of our energy and time and money. But the bubble is absolutely real. Everyone's starting to recognize it. I cannot wait until it bursts and we don't have to deal with this nonsense anymore.
One, it's not a bubble, it's a balloon. It's not going to pop. It's going to deflate.
Balloons, famously impervious from popping.
It is going to deflate a little and then it's going to come back up. It's like anything. It's America to a T. Let's charge in headlong for the first 20 minutes, and if we don't score, then we'll get beaten, right? This is the American way. We charge in headlong into an idea, and then it levels off. But we always feel the sting, and then it levels off, right? And it finds its true balance.
Yeah, the 15,000 people getting laid off by Intel because they overinvested in a thing that's not delivering any results. People are trying to actually figure out what to use AI for, and they don't have good results. And you know how I know I'm right? Because the stock market thinks I'm right. Because people aren't willing to invest money in a thing that can't deliver value to anybody.
I don't disagree with you being right in this case, but I'll say it's you're correct in this moment. I think you're incorrect calling it a bubble because I don't think it's a bubble. Right? I think it's a balloon. I think it deflates. And yeah, you and I both worked in big companies. Like you know me. Like when I see the budget asks and someone's like, I need 15 engineers, I need 10 engineers, I need 5. I'm always like, oh, it's always a really nice round number. How the hell did you do do that, right? Like it's never 13.
But if no one's willing to invest, so if ChatGPT is currently at kindergarten level ability to write coherent sentences, and the only way to get it to be a fifth grader, it's going to be 50 years before it's college graduate. So to get it to a fifth grader level of writing, we're going to need to invest another $50-100 billion. Who's going to write that check when the market looks like this? You're going to stagnate your current capabilities, and all you're going to do is boil away our water for no improved benefits, because unlike all other technology, this one is not getting cheaper over time. It's getting more expensive over time. Who's going to write the check when the balloon deflates?
Okay, so here's why this thing is a balloon, right? Without checking, what do you think Nvidia stock was at in 2021?
I mean, this is the problem. Stock has been insane for so long. It's
Right.
like $700 a share.
So it was at $13, right? Like $13. It's now 10x, so under 10x. It's $100 right now, right? So this bubble will burst and they will drop. But to me, when we talk about bubble burst, I think of like the housing market, right? I think about that was a crash, right? Like that was
The dot-com bubble burst and put millions of people out of work.
Yeah. But for years, even before technology, right? Like people were getting put out of work by events and like, hey, like, we're moving automotive outside the country. Like that things happen in business.
Yeah, capitalism
right?
is fundamentally broken and is not supportive of workers. Yeah, thank you for making my argument.
They were aggressive in their hiring, right? Which is
Uh-huh.
the American way, right? Like
Uh-huh.
nobody's ever conservative in their growth. And this is probably where I get annoyed at the billionaires and the corporations is they don't project, right? Big companies suck at multi-year planning, right? Like
Right.
they never mind like 10, 15 years.
And they don't care about the human cost of it.
Yeah, and they can't even plan 2 years out, right? So
No.
they'll hire 15,000 people, and it's an easy decision then, and it usually is the right decision to level and cease the employment of those people. As much as it sucks, they made a bad bet, right? But it's never good.
But what could they have bet on? That $10 billion could have gone to so many other things. There's so many other ideas. This is the problem with the technology industry, is it latches on to these ideas and then throws trillions of dollars at people trying to be the next Facebook and Twitter, and that went nowhere. Somehow, surprisingly, actually, Twitter and Facebook didn't go away like Friendster and MySpace did. They currently latched on to the AI bubble. Everything has to be AI. Everything that they make has to try and justify the cost of the AI, and that money could have gone to so many other interesting ideas. There's a thing we'll talk about at some point, which is the brand of AI has been ruined by large language models. There's a ton of really interesting things that machine learning could do, and you could spend $10 billion on doing other applications of some of this technology that isn't theft, that isn't producing crap results, and isn't burning the planet, and yet we don't invest our money wisely. These people shouldn't be allowed to invest $10 billion because they clearly don't know what to do with it if they ended up having to fire 15,000 people in this bubble.
So here's my challenge, right? And this is where I'm right, and you are ultimately wrong. I want AI to progress to the point where it is making better decisions. And this is an example of where humans suck. And we always will suck at this, right? Like we just always will suck at this. But you don't, it's like you don't want AI to go there. Like
I'm saying the cost of getting AI there is so prohibitively planet ruiningly expensive that it's not worth it.
No, I disagree. So
you're willing to burn the planet. I know you're willing to burn the planet.
But
that's the problem.
People, when Kevin says burn, he doesn't mean literally.
Oh, I mean literally.
No,
you are taking water away from things like food production in order to cool GPUs to create ChatGPT nonsense, which still hallucinates, by the way. So good luck with that.
Stop with the hallucination. We never proved that out.
We absolutely did. You want me to go find the chatbot?
No, I watched it the other day.
Yeah.
So the reward over the next 100 years after your planet burning and the obscene amount of money it cost will be the beginning of utopia.
No, we're back on the AI utopia topic, which we're going to go in circles on.
The price tag will be worth the destination. I guarantee you. Like, so even if we do that.
So you're wish casting a magic scenario in which billionaires give up power.
No.
Cool. Good luck with that. Of course you are.
No.
You're expecting that you just said you can't wait for the utopic day when the AI is smart enough to not throw away $15 billion or $10 billion and hiring and firing 15,000 people. You're assuming that the tech billionaire is ever going to agree that they should give up that power to be morons who fail upwards. Elon Musk is a moron who has constantly failed forward in a way that none of us are allowed to fail. We all fail backwards except for the billionaires.
So you're telling a story. It's like a really terrible. It's not even an analogy, but You're still talking in terms of the billionaire's happiness is based on the square, and I'm saying, but it won't be a square that they're in the future. The billionaire's happiness is based on money today, but what if AI is how we get to? We can give you another 100 years. The money take is less important to the billionaire now than the extra 100 years of life, right? Like they still want to be rich for the next 100 years of life, but I'm saying like AI will take us to the point where just having $1 billion appears to be less than the reward in other ways, right? Like
not a single billionaire today or in the history of this planet has ever willingly allowed the structure to get us to the point where they would no longer be billionaires.
Okay,
we have had to force them to do that through the guillotine, or fortunate for them in the 1910s and 20s and the 30s, federal action.
Hold on, let me dream for a second. You can't stop me and say it's not possible, because it
why
will
is
be
your
possible.
dream but no, what I'm disagreeing with you on is, why do you get to dream and I don't get to dream about the fact that we could, through structural group consensus, change our systems without burning the planet, without wasting trillions of dollars? Why is your dream better than my dream?
It's not better. I just think that, and neither of us are more right than the other. I think we dream in two different mediums. And it's not like my analogy where I say there's black and white photograph versus motion color. This is, you dream in one medium and I dream in another. You dream in the medium, which is us evolving with the current parameters. Whether we agree, like we're wish casting. Sure. I like that term.
Right.
We're both wish casting, but I feel like my wish cast is the one that's happening, right?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
You wholesome Joes are losing this battle right now.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So just enjoy the ride.
No. All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this episode of Acceptance Criteria. To read articles that we've written on similar topics to the ones we talk about here, head over to the blog at acceptancepod.com. You can also follow us on most apps. We're at AcceptancePod. We'll post links to show notes and any articles from the blog over there. We're also building a community on Reddit at r/acceptancecriteria and on Discord. You can find links to both in the show notes and on the blog. And I promise we'll be moderating the crap out of them to keep it a nice little slice of the internet, unlike Twitter today. For now, I'm Kevin Thomas Euland, and you can find me on most apps at KThomasEuland. That's ULLAND.
And I'm Andrew Greener, and you can find me on most apps at Criteria Greener. That's GREINER. And this has been Acceptance Criteria. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you.